if I could encourage Trump to look larger than himself. After he was indicted, he came back to Mar-a-Lago. He gave a speech after the New York indictment, and it was very much focused on him as the victim. And I understand that. I understand why it's frustrating to Trump to be targeted like he has been. But if Trump can build a larger story here, and the larger story is the awful precedent that is being set after 250 years as a country not doing this, basically. Now we are charging political opponents and trying to put them in prison for the rest of their lives. The precedent is set. Trump, Buck, you were just telling me off air, has now put on Truth Social. What did he say? If he gets elected, what happens?
This is from Donald Trump on Truth. Now that the seal is broken, in addition to closing the border and removing all of the criminal elements that have illegally invaded our country, making America energy independent and even dominant again, and immediately ending the war between Russia and Ukraine, so a bunch of things he says he's going to do, I will appoint a real special prosecutor to go after the most corrupt president in the history of the USA, Joe Biden, the entire Biden crime family, and all others involved with the destruction of our elections, borders, and country itself. This is the presidential equivalent of an eye for an eye, my friends. Trump is saying, if I win, it's going to be more than just a bad election day for the Bidens. Sorry.
No, it's self-evident. This is where this leads. And I don't disagree with Joe Biden, with Donald Trump's response here, because even on CNN, we've got a cut here where they're talking. Remember, the FBI has had the Hunter Biden laptop since December of 2019. And on CNN, they even had a commentator saying, what in the world is going on here? Listen to this, as we have clearly two forms of justice here. Donald Trump gets the book thrown at him for everything, and Republicans in general. Meanwhile, Joe Biden and his entire crime family, nobody does anything. Listen.
Sarah makes a great point about the Hunter Biden investigation at DOJ. This is preposterous. This has been pending, according to our reporting at CNN, since 2018. 5 years. And this, by the way, this investigation is not the laptop. This investigation is a tax issue. Did Hunter Biden declare his income? And a sort of obscure gun law. Did he possess a gun while he was addicted to drugs, which you're not allowed to do under federal law? Did he lie about that? But 5 years, I mean, that's a 5-week investigation. Somebody, and this spans the Trump administration and the Biden administration. Someone's got to make a call on this case. I don't know what is going on, but it's beyond anything I've seen before.
I'll tell you this, if Joe Biden loses, Hunter Biden's going to prison. I'll tell you that much. That's what's going to happen. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Well,
which I think is part and parcel of this two-tiered justice system that we have. And that's why I would like for Trump to make this a larger indictment of the system that has been created. I would like to write a speech, Buck, because he could come out on Tuesday. I believe he's going to speak at Bedminster after the arraignment in Miami. And, Buck, he could come out and say, these charges represent a fundamental rejection of everything that Joe Biden claimed to you, right? He said he was going to come in as someone who united the nation, as someone who would return normalcy to the country. Instead, he has engaged in the most direct attack upon democracy that has ever existed in the history of the United States. We've never seen this before, Buck.
You know, I'll tell you, I thought that I just checked it, the statute of limitations, even on wire fraud, federal wire fraud, it's only 5 years. I thought it was 10. The statutes differ on, there are some there's no statute of limitation on murder, for example, no statute of limitation on treason. There are a range of crimes, but so it seems to me that actually, now that I'm looking at the math and thinking about it, when was the last thing that Hunter Biden is it 2018? So they just can run the clock out, and then they can say, yeah, we're handling this. Sorry, we can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I think
right?
That's clear what they're doing.
So they're running the clock
point.
out.
Yeah. And to the point, I mean, just use this as an example. Jack Smith, Buck, was appointed in November and has now brought charges, 8 months later, in a fairly convoluted investigation without substantial precedent relating to a former president of the United States. 8 months. They can't figure out Hunter Biden. They've had the laptop since at least December 2019. The case itself has been open 5 years.
Here's why the Hunter Biden reality. Now, well, actually, there are a few things. One is, I think part of the slow roll and the whole effort here is to just make it about Hunter and not look at the connectivity between Hunter and Joe and the money flowing into the family. Because Hunter Biden being a screw up and all those things, people will say, oh, and Joe's his dad and he loves him and we can forgive and forget what Hunter did. But it's really about the Biden crime family. So point one for them has always been to prevent anybody from understanding the full scope of the Biden corruption and that it directly implicates the guy sitting in the White House, right? That's been a big part of it all along. And now I think what we're seeing is by running out the statute, so now actually I'm feeling better about my stake bet, Clay. Running out the statute of limitations on Hunter, these crimes that they're talking about, we're talking about things like tax evasion, wire fraud. This is easy stuff. This is why everybody who gets nailed on this takes a plea bargain, because it's just the numbers on the screen. It's the reality of the banking transfers. There's not really a lot to discuss. And so the fact that they've slow rolled this, right? This isn't a super complicated, at least some of the charges that are already on issue. But what they've done is they've given Hunter the system, deep state, however you want to describe it, apparatus. They've given Hunter the political benefit of, we're not going to prosecute a sitting president's son for this stuff. We're just going to run it out. That's what it seems like right now. And I think that's particularly enraging to people because that's the approach with Hunter Biden. With Donald Trump, we have the exact opposite, which is get the most extreme charges you can from as many places as you can to do anything you can to stop him from not just being the nominee, but winning. I mean, it's going to be a close. No one thinks this. I think it's not going to be a close race in these states between Trump and Hunter. I mean, Trump and Joe. Trump and Hunter would be interesting, too.
I wonder, Buck, on some level, whether there's a behind-the-scenes discussion going on with Joe Biden where they are saying, if you agree not to run, we won't charge your son. And that is the way that the Democrats get Joe Biden to leave, but they make it look like it's a voluntary choice as opposed to some sort of, because I'll say this.
Who has that? Who is the mafia don who has that sit down with the sitting president and says, you step down or we're gonna charge your son? Like, who does that, though?
Well, I mean, that's the question of, do we really think that the powers that be in the Democrat Party want Joe Biden to be the candidate? And let me say this too, Buck. I thought, because if I were mapping this out and I was Merrick Garland, I would want charges brought first against Hunter Biden. Let it marinate, let it last for a week or two, and then you bring charges against Trump. And I think you would have diluted a lot of the ability of Trump to attack the two-tiered system.
Now it will look too little too late no matter what.
Correct.
Right. Now it looks like even if you do it, you're just trying, but the two-tiered justice system isn't real. No, we know it is real. And so it's less effective doing it this way. I think that's definitely the case.
And so I wonder, that makes me a little bit apprehensive about my idea that Merrick Garland was going to bring charges against Hunter Biden too, because the time to do it was before you brought charges against Trump. That really was.
So just one thing that I keep thinking about here is on the Biden, and let's come back. There's the Gavin, Sean did a sit down. I don't think the full interview aired. So Sean Hannity did there was a teaser out from the interview. And look, I'm going to watch. I really want to watch what Gavin Newsom says to Sean. So I'll be watching that. But the whole Biden gets pushed aside thing. Here's why I see it as I'm very confident that he's still going to be the nominee. Here's why. If it's Trump, Democrats are absolutely convinced that Joe Biden is their best option and that Joe Biden will win. Now, that doesn't mean, before anyone sends me an email, that's crazy, that they're right. They thought that, and I was at CNN when this was going on, right? They thought Trump was the perfect candidate for Hillary Clinton, and they were wrong. So it's not to say, to point out the Democrats want Trump doesn't mean that Trump can't beat Biden, but it is to say, I think they believe that their best matchup is Trump-Biden again. I don't think there's any doubt in their minds on that one, unless Biden, has a severe health issue that they can't hide.
Yeah, and look, I wonder too, so many Republicans' natural reaction is anger and to line up behind Trump. And that's why we've been asking so many questions about would you pardon him if you're the nominee? We asked Ron DeSantis on this show. Vivek Ramaswamy, I think, is the only candidate who's come out and said 100% that he would, and credit to him for saying so. I wonder how many people out there listening to us, though, Buck, just have an immense amount of Trump fatigue, right? Because when you're fighting a battle over presidential classified documents, you're not talking about the border as much. You're not talking about crime. You're not talking about all of the failures that Joe Biden as president has put in place. Instead, you're talking about Donald Trump and battles with the Department of Justice. And I wonder how many people listening to us right now are just like, this story's never going to end, right? Because now you got New York. Now you add in Miami. I think you'll end up with D.C. I think you'll end up with Atlanta. All of these spiraling different investigations. The discussion is not what Joe Biden is failing doing. It's about Trump and his legal peril. And I wonder how much of that weighs in as people make their decisions about where, going to vote. And I certainly think it weighs in with independents. We talked last week. What do we say, Buck? It's moms in the suburbs that are going to decide this election. Are moms in the suburbs like, oh, now Trump is charged in Miami, I'm definitely voting for him now? I don't know. I find it hard to believe that your average mom in the suburbs is all in on Trump as a result of these charges.